Wooly asks, absolutely loving the new podcast. What made you change the accent you sing in over the years? I love whatever you do, but I have to remind yourself you're not singing, pissing up and down your hall in Fine Art of Deception. No, pacing. Yeah, I can see why you would get that. Why have I changed my accent? I'll tell you for why, because I never wanted to be a singer. This is going to be a good one, so I'm going to have a cup of tea. A sip of tea, not a cup of tea. Have you seen the size of the fucking thing? I never wanted to be a singer. I sang by necessity. Can you even call it that? We were auditioning singers for a very, very, very long time. And we had 3 songs from an old demo that I'd done ages ago. And I was just bored of them. I was so bored of these songs. I'm like, okay, can we go in the studio and just do 3 new songs? I'll sing them. Fuck it. We'll just, the singers at least, even if they're coming down. And a lot of these singers were terrible. Terrible. I just wanted someone that could sing better than me, and I could not sing for shit. Anyway, we did this demo. It was so quirky and I sounded so different from anyone else. We got fucking signed. That was never part of the problem. Careful what you wish for, or even what you don't wish for. I shouldn't have done it if I didn't want to get signed. A bit like people complain when their porn tape gets out, but you made a porn tape. Make it, watch it, erase it. I should have done that with this demo, but who knows? If I found a singer, I probably wouldn't be doing this. We probably wouldn't be talking. We definitely wouldn't be talking right now, because you wouldn't have given a shit about me. The fucking singer that was singing my songs would be the one that's getting all of the credit. When I started, there's a theory that to do anything well, you've got to do your 10,000 hours. You've got to do it for 10,000 hours, which is roughly every day for 10 years. I learned to sing in front of people. And again, I never wanted to do it, so I never had any singers I wanted to copy. I never had any desire or push or anything. So my way of singing was drinking heavily, doing loads of speed, and just going on stage and shouting. And back when we started out, we were only doing like 45 minutes maximum. That was about as long as my voice lasted, because I used to just blow it out. Fuck knows why it worked. Fuck knows why anyone saw me and just went, oh, this guy's a singer. Any singers out there will know the first 10 years of gigs you do are fucking dreadful when you look back at them. You haven't got a clue what you're doing. You've got no stagecraft. You've certainly got no skills as far as vocalising is concerned. So I was just singing anything. And because I didn't have a voice, I didn't have my own personality that I wanted to put across, I just copied my favourite singers. Well, it was at a time where singers sang in a kind of transatlantic accent. My favourite English singers were Jake Burns. Russell Mail's not English, but he sounded English. But there was a lot of the Ozzy, Lemmy, Bowie even had this accent. And I just went, oh, that's how you sing. And I've got so many American bands that I love. I just a bit of that slipped in. Sometimes I listen to my old stuff, and I'm so embarrassed about it, because my main thing was I was trying to be Steve Albini and Bob Mould, and I didn't succeed in either. But I look at myself just trying desperately to just be Albini, just to shout my head off. But I had no idea what I was doing. My accent was the last of my worries. I was just trying to think of how to fucking get through a gig. How do you stop you losing your voice? Indirectly, I did learn. I developed a stage voice that I don't seem to lose now. And when I work with professional singers and I see them losing their voice a few gigs into a tour, and I'm just like, maybe that 10 years in front of people just trying to front it out did me a bit of good. But, oh my God, and for the longest time, so all through the 90s, when we had our success, or most of our success, I just was out my depth completely. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. Didn't have a clue what I was trying to do in any way. The way I looked, the way I sang, the way I presented myself, I was just winging it. Then a bit later, I started singing more solo stuff. And I had this problem in the studio. This is what it is. I had a problem in the studio where I lost my voice. And I couldn't get it back. And I had singing teachers coming in. I went to a doctor. I had things shoved down my throat. And they could see no reason why I'd lost my voice. But I'd lost it completely. It had gone. This is a while before I lost it in the Wildheart during Renaissance Men, which was a completely different thing. This was just mystery. I went to the psychologist about it, and it turned out that it's a psychological problem. Whatever it is, it's a psychological problem that's stopping you from singing. And I think I just got to the point where I was thinking about what I was doing. I'd been winging it for so long on a diet of drugs and alcohol that when I started getting sober, stopped doing speed, boom, my voice went. And it was a psychological thing. How the fuck do I sing again? I've got no idea how. And I used to try and nothing would come out. I couldn't maintain a note, let alone hold a tune. And I was working on a song, and I sang it in my Geordie accent, and I was able to do it. Now, I was working with Jason Edwards at the time, yeah, and it was That's a Nasty Habit was the song. And I'd been working with a wonderful girl called Yolanda Quarty, who changed her name a few times, became really famous when she called herself Yola in America. Fucking amazing singer, amazing woman, just a beautiful, beautiful energy. Now, I was telling her about my problems with my voice, and she said, don't lose your inner hooligan. I was like, what's that? And she went, well, football thugs never lose their voice. They can chant for ages and they never lose their voice. Babies never lose their voice. And I'm like, this is great. I mean, this woman was a singer, And so I figured that if I just put a certain amount of Geordie in the parts that I'm getting wrong or that I'm having difficulty with, I can probably front it out. And it turned out that there was parts that I was trying to sing or hold notes that I couldn't do unless I sang in a Geordie accent. So between learning who I wanted to portray myself as and how I wanted to be heard and losing my voice and having to put a Geordie accent on to get through the sessions, I ended up with this kind of hybrid voice. I will say, if I write a song and it's in a transatlantic accent, I don't argue with it. I don't try and Geordie things up or de-Geordie things. The song tells me how it's supposed to sound. Ideally, I'd get someone else to sing it, but it just comes out the way that I write it. But fortunately, it comes out largely with a bit of a Geordie twang to it. But that's the reason why my voice or my accent changed over the years. Purely organic. I reckon I found my voice now. I reckon I know what I sound like, but that's quite a few years down the line. I'm a late learner. I had to do my 20,000 hours as opposed to people's normal 10,000 hours. Never found anything easy. Lee Scott. My question really comes from my awesome 13-year-old daughter who unaccountably became a huge fan of Holt and Courtney Love this year. What was it like working with Courtney? What's the story there? And bonus question, what do you think of Taylor Swift? Well, I don't know if this is going to shock anyone, both of these answers. I love Taylor Swift. I've loved Taylor Swift since her first album. I thought she was great. I saw the backlash when she went and sang live with Stevie Nicks. Stevie Nicks, who's an absolute legend, and Taylor Swift, who was just a young girl starting out. I thought the balls on that girl for doing that. And then everyone started piling in, she wasn't as good as Stevie Nicks. Who the fuck is as good as Stevie Nicks? And then I just saw this backlash get bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where I'm just like, there's a young girl here who writes her own songs, is singing country, she's trying her best, but there's a skill there, there's a talent there. Why do people hate her so much? I'm still yet to figure out why haters are the way they are, but I get a feeling that if the person they hate doesn't respond, it makes them furious, so they hate more. And Taylor Swift's handled the haters really well. So I love Taylor Swift. Please tell your daughter that I love Taylor Swift. Courtney Love is lovely. I mean, she's a legend. She's an icon. I realised when I was on tour with Courtney, she's one of the few living people that you'll see on T-shirts everywhere you go. I realised that with Angus. When I was on tour with AC/DC, you'd go out. AC/DC played places so big, there'd be markets set up around the venue. There'd be all these bootleg T-shirt stores you couldn't even do anything about. And there'd be all these icons. And they were all dead, apart from Angus on the T-shirt. Well, I used to find this with Courtney. I'd go into shops and everything, and she's the only person that was alive, in all these things. She was one of the few, not the only person, but one of the few living icons that we have. But she was so kind, so generous that she'd just go to the bank and just grab, $500 and give it to me. I thought I'd just get you that. And I'd be like, why? was in the band. You know, generous with her time, you know, really kind but to the point and very, very smart, very streetwise, which I really like. How did it come about? She's great on stage as well. I mean, a lot of the she never rehearsed. She barely turned up to rehearsals and went on stage and never, ever lost her voice. She's in touch with her inner hooligan. She matched me scream for scream. We did this thing where we traded off screams and she always kicked my ass every time. Just amazing. Great performer. How did it come about? I knew the drummer, Scott Lips. He came down to a gig I was playing with Rick Nielsen. I was in the Barbados store, which is on the grounds of CBGB's. One of the Barbados, one of the people that worked there, I don't know if it was John Barbados, but someone that worked there said, do you like Cheap Trick? And I was like, yeah. And he said, do you want to play with Cheap Trick? I'm like, okay. It was supposed to be Rick Nielsen and Robin Zander. Robin Zander couldn't make it for whatever reason. So it was me and Rick Nielsen and this guy playing drums that had never heard Cheap Trick in his life, and it kind of showed. But I held me on and even sang a couple of songs. You don't ideally want to sing Cheap Trick songs in front of Rick Nielsen. He's been working with Robin Zander his whole life. What can you do that's going to ever impress him? And we did this gig and it was lovely. And this guy, Scott Lips, came over and he went, oh, look, here's my card. You know, I'd like to talk to you. Just, you know, one of these guys that just likes to, you know, he's a New York schmoozer who likes to go around, take people to dinner, just find out who you are. I looked him up online and it turns out he's the head of the biggest modeling agency definitely in New York, probably in America, maybe in the world, but he had all these supermodels on his roster. And it was so funny. Anyway, we kept in touch and he played drums for Courtney Love. It turns out that Courtney was, he was going into rehearsal. And I went, have you ever thought of having another guitar player? And he said, well, not really. We've talked about it, but I don't think so. They had a guitar player called Miko, who definitely was fine by himself. He didn't need another guitar player. Miko was a fantastic guitar player. Lovely fella. Played on some of the gas stuff. Even co-wrote some of the gas stuff. So I was talking to Scott and I said, how about you discuss this with her? And he said, okay, I'll discuss it with her. And I went, okay, I'll see you in a day. And I just left, got on an aeroplane. I used to do stuff like this when I had loads of air miles. Just got on an aeroplane, just went there, turned up in New York and was just like, you know, hey, turned up at Courtney's house actually, because he told me her address. But, you know, I turned up at Courtney's house to talk my way into playing guitar. And I did. And that's how amenable she was. But we both had really similar tastes in music, both big Cheap Trick fans, Replacements, a bunch of stuff like that. So I went down, got the job. That's how I talked my way into it, basically. But it was great. There was no crossword ever with her. People I was talking to, that was their biggest worry, was that me and her was just going to come to blows and just be knocking heads all the time. Never, ever, ever. She's a really good communicator. And when you've got a really good communicator who's very direct, things tend not to, you know, get the boiling point. They just get resolved straight away. That's what I've found, which is why I'm trying to be one. Haven't always been one, but I'm trying my best. The C's again. I think it's the C's. You're going to have to tell me how to pronounce your name. C-E-Y-S. The C's? Don't know. With the old lineup, when touring and recording, how did you communicate with each other? It must have been hell and infuriating if people were not talking or feuding with each other. It's supposed to be fun, right? Yes, it is. The C's supposed to be fun. I realised that later on. I thought bands were supposed to have friction and supposed to not get on and all that nonsense. How is it when you're touring and recording? Well, usually in recording, it's not so bad because you don't go to the studio together. Touring's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, the typical scenario would be one person is on his computer mixing something with his headphones on. One person is watching a movie on his phone with his headphones on. Another person is, you know, high or whatever, staring into space. And then there's me sitting there. And I'm not saying woe is me, because I always had Dunk to talk to and the crew and stuff like that. But I was in a band who didn't talk. I'm a Ramones fan. I just thought, well, that's cool. Ramones didn't talk. Yeah, but Ramones had Dee Dee writing and Joey writing. And they were Ramones. Jesus Christ, you know. And they were playing all around the world. They were playing in stadiums in fucking South America and stuff. We were a relatively small band in a relatively small environment. I mean, you know, we were either in a van or in a bus. Small dressing rooms. I mean, imagine Ramones all had their own fucking dressing room. But we'd just be in a dressing room and 9 times out of 10, you didn't want to go in the dressing room. And it was horrible. It was just horrible. And then would go on stage, and for 90 minutes, you'd forget about it all. But 90 minutes out of 24 hours is not very much. And a bit like, I've likened it to being in a marriage where you're only together because the sex is good and everything else is joyless. That's what being in the Wildhearts was like for me. And I suspect for the rest of the band, but it's not going to work out. You can't keep a marriage together because if you have a shag, and it's good. You can't keep a band together because for 90 minutes it's not miserable. It was just an unhappy band to be in. And again, not comparing the people because that's the way they are, blah, blah, blah. But it's a lot more fun now, And we have had lineups in the past that have been more fun, Touring with Devon was really fun, for example. That was non-stop laughter and, really good laughs. It was fun with Jeff in the group. But, it was, we just didn't talk. If anyone thinks that would be fun to do, then, knock yourself out. There's loads of musicians you're not going to get on with. Should have a great time. But being with people that you're not getting on with all of the time, fuck it. Honestly, life is far too short and there's far too much good times to have. Playing music should be fun, you're right, the Seas. It should be fun and I plan on it being fun for the rest of my life. Who did backing vocals in Nita Nitro, asks Anshel. It sounds like Willie Dowling. The rest of PHUQ and Fishing for Luckies besides CJ. Well, CJ wasn't on PHUQ. He wasn't on any of Fishing for Luckies, but he wasn't on PHUQ. I don't think his voice is on any of PHUQ. Any backing vocals you hear that sound like yobs will be me and Danny. Any backing vocals you hear that sounds like someone can sing will be Willie Dowling. And that's the kind of way it worked. Other people came in and out and sang. We were the sort of band that if the crew were in, they were singing. If we had any gang vocals, anyone who was in there that wasn't needed, even the fucking engineer, he'd press record, then run in and sing with us. I'm still the same now. I like the vibe of having tons of people around the microphone and taking the piss and having a laugh, and some of it ends up being on the record. I love that. I'll always love that. Always did. But PHUQ, I don't recall CJ. Well, CJ wasn't because we fell out when we were putting guitars down. We hadn't even done any vocals. We'd only been in there a few days. We're probably still putting fucking drums and bass down and maybe guide guitars that we would have gone over anyway. So I would say fairly assuredly, I don't think CJ is on PHUQ. He's definitely not on Fishing for Lucky. So you can't hear his voice anywhere. So much for the classic fucking Wildheart sound. But yeah, it's pretty much Willie Dowling if it sounds nice. And if it doesn't sound nice, it's me and Danny and the crew. And, I think Rich jumped in there every now and again. It's one of the only albums Rich did where he stayed for the whole recording, I seem to remember.